I said, Ronnie, I don't like when people call me stupid. I had great heritage, an uncle who was a great, great genius, a father who was a genius. Everybody, we have a lot of geniuses. I don't like being called stupid. Is there a test or something I can take to prove to these radical left maniacs that I'm much smarter than them? Is there a test? And he said, sir, there is a test. It's called the X test.
How about Donald Trump talking about how smart he is and how he wishes that there was a test out there that would show the world just how smart he actually is? Well, Donald, as your former fixer and a guy who gave you a lot of information over the course of a decade and a half, there's something called an IQ test. Yeah, it's called an IQ test, and it stands for an intelligent quotient test. All right, there's a whole variety of tests out there, right? There's one that's called the WAIS, W-A-I-S. It's the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, and it'll show the world just how stupid that you are.
Michael Cohen is giving Trump reactions on social media, and it's pretty great. I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ, and this feels like such a forever ago story to be reacting to now. So in case y'all don't remember, Trump took a test a while ago that is usually given to senior citizens to assess their general cognition and see if they're displaying any signs of dementia.
I said to the doctor, it was Dr. Ronnie Jackson, I said, is there some kind of a test, an acuity test? And he said there actually is, and he named it, whatever it might be. And it was 30 or 35 questions. The first questions are very easy. The last questions are much more difficult. Like a memory question, it's like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. So they say, could you repeat that? So I said, yeah. So it's person, woman, man, camera, TV. Okay, that's very good.
I mean, I know that you can stand up there and you can turn around and tell everybody person, woman, man, camera, TV.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
I mean, everybody wanted to know, how is it possible that you could remember that? I mean, it's just, you know, there's something great about your brain. No, Donald, it's not great about your brain. It's the stupidest thing that you could possibly have said. And while all of us know just how ridiculous that comment was, nobody really actually called you on it.
He bragged about passing this test with flying colors, claiming that he's a genius. This is proof that he's a genius. Not only that, but he comes from a long line of geniuses. To those of us on the radical left, how can we now deny his incredible intelligence? Now, Michael Cohen, Trump's former fixer turned foil, has been trying to get the word out to anyone who will listen to him that Trump is not only a bad guy, but he really shouldn't be trusted to lead anything or anyone, let alone an entire nation. Anyway, here's a good rule of thumb. The harder people try to convince you of something, the more skeptical you should be of what they're trying to convince you of. In other words, people shouldn't have to tell you that they're intelligent. If they really are intelligent, you will know. It's like back when I was dating, and if somebody put they were the funny guy on a dating profile, that was usually a red flag that they're probably just obnoxious. But to Trump and Cohen's point, intelligence is relative. And when people are assessing how intelligent they think someone else is, they tend to use themselves as a benchmark. For instance, if someone knows a lot about one subject that you have never studied, they sound really smart to you because you don't know what they're talking about. And the problem with that sort of assessment is that you don't have any way of determining competency in a field that you've never studied. It's like, oh, you know a lot about annuities? I don't even know how stamps work. It doesn't work.
I mean, everybody's just amazed. No, Donald, the only people that are amazed are you, and you. It's not amazing, the fact that you can remember 5 words, if in fact you actually even remember those 5 words. It's the same thing as when you paid off the doctor to turn around and to tell him that he needs to go ahead and tell the whole world that you're the healthiest president in the history of this country. But you're not, and everybody knows you're not. All you have to do is look at you and we know you're not the healthiest president. I mean, when was the last time you actually went for a jog? When was the last time you went for a walk? I mean, it's absolutely a joke that people are buying into your day in and day out.
Now, when it comes to public figures like elected political officials or decision makers, this can become problematic. Remember when Ben Carson was put in charge of housing and urban development, even though he had literally no experience working in housing and urban development? Well, most people, at least on the left, were pretty upset about this because there were definitely way more qualified people to fill that cabinet position who could have been really effective in that role. But Trump's most ardent supporters saw it differently. Carson was a doctor, and a good doctor. He was smart. If he can figure out doctoring, he should have no problem with anything else. Well, no. Focused expertise in one field doesn't necessarily translate to others. Learning and mastery take time, if nothing else. Time spent studying neurology doesn't lend itself to a deep understanding of urbanization. Now, I don't want to downplay or disregard someone's actual accomplishments, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's not impressive that Ben Carson isn't or wasn't a good neurosurgeon. I'm also not the one to say whether or not he was good because I've never studied the brain besides reading some David Eagleman books and watching way too many seasons of Grey's Anatomy than I ever should have. But either way, what does neurology have to do with housing and urban development?
We can make fun of this stupidity all day and all night because that's really what it is. It's pure and utter stupidity. And you know, I'm not sure if people are going to Donald's rallies anymore. First of all, the numbers are absolutely down. They're saying by like 35, 38%. But I'm not even sure if the people who are going to these rallies are going to these rallies simply because they are interested in hearing what Donald is going to say, something intelligent, or rather to watch a show, to watch, the clown carnival barker sit up there, make a complete of himself.
In another video, I spoke about the rise of the anti-science right and how the Republicans, particularly those living in rural areas, are more skeptical of the scientific community than they have been since the 70s. The 538 article mentioned that even the most educated amongst us can still be influenced by cultural or political biases, which is why, for example, we have anti-vax doctors and nurses. Theoretically, yes, they should have a better understanding of the science than we do, but cognitive dissonance is a very real thing. I know a guy who loves watching nature documentaries. In all of those documentaries, they inevitably talk about how climate change is damaging ecosystems and reducing animal populations around the globe. This guy, for as much as he loves those animals and those documentaries, still doesn't believe in climate change. He believes everything else in the documentaries is factual, just not the climate change stuff. I think another big component of this too is personal lived experiences in combination with accessibility. Going back to the doctor example, to become a doctor in the US is a grueling and impressive feat. I didn't do it, I never wanted to do it, who knows if I even could have done it if I tried. It's got a high academic barrier to entry, it's nonstop for years of your life, it's disruptive to your life and your family, and it's not accomplished without a ton of self-sacrifices. On top of that, it's prohibitively expensive to the point that you almost can't become a doctor in this country anymore unless you already come from money. The interview process alone would be enough to throw most families into crippling debt. So for something that's not even an option for so many Americans, someone who's done something that we couldn't have done even if we wanted to is generally seen as impressive. But when you consider how many people got into Ivy League schools because they were able to pay for it, you have to wonder, is Ted Cruz actually smarter than the average American because he went to an expensive school, or were there smarter people who could have done more or better than Ted Cruz given the opportunities he was afforded? Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is the dichotomy of imposter syndrome versus unabated and inexplicable arrogance. It's the adage that the more you know, the more aware you are of how much you still don't know. It's usually very humbling for people, which again is why truly intelligent and learned people tend to downplay their accomplishments. When you compare that with unfettered arrogance and people who are constantly trying to flex their big brains, it can often be taken as a sign that that person hasn't been exposed to enough of the world for them to even think they've figured any of it out. And that is a dangerous trait in a leader.